Paltrocast now with Darren Paltrowitz. Get ready to listen to your favorite artists. The Paltrocast is starting real soon. New interviews, no auto-tune. The Paltrocast now. It's the Paltrocast now. It's the Paltrocast now.
Paltrocast.
Thanks to Steve Schiltz for that great theme song, and thanks to you for checking out the Paltrocast with Darren Paltrowitz. On this edition, I spoke with three entertainers who are doing pretty interesting things these days, and those are Derek Sanders, Vickie Guerrero, and Stoll Vaughan. First up is my interview with Derek Sanders. Millions of people know him as the frontman of the band Mayday Parade, but Derek actually just released an EP called My Rock and Roll Heart back in February. The roots of that project actually go back to a Valentine's Day gift that he'd given his wife. We spoke about that, future plans for Mayday Parade, influences, hobbies outside of music, and more. Hey, Derek, how's it going there today?
Hey, very well. How are you?
Great, thank you. So where am I getting you right now? Where are you on tour?
I'm in Nashville, Tennessee right now.
Beautiful Nashville, Tennessee. Well, the new EP just came out. How long had it been in the works for?
A pretty long time, honestly. Yeah, so the first song that I recorded for the EP was back in 2017, and it was pretty much exactly 3 years ago. It was on Valentine's Day of 2017. So yeah, and then I just kind of took my time getting it all together, and then throughout the next year and a half or 2 years or so from there, when I recorded the rest of the songs, and then now here we are.
And the EP is titled after a lyric from a praise chorus by Jimmy Eat World. Was that the first song that you chose for the EP?
It wasn't the first song. The first song that I recorded was actually the first track on the EP. It's called But Lauren. It's a cover of a guy named Mike Hansen. And then a praise chorus actually is a song that, so before I decided to even do this EP, I had played a couple of I guess kind of like events in Tallahassee or whatever, and just like played some short little acoustic sets, and a praise chorus is one of the songs that I did for that. And one of those was with Daniel Lancaster, who we'd talked about playing something together, and he came out and sang a praise chorus with me live. And then from there it was kind of like, it works really well, and decided to put it on the EP. I mean, whenever I was trying to come up with what to title it, I love that lyric and thought it kind of just fit the whole vibe of the EP pretty well, and just went with it.
And that song notably has the cameo with Davey from The Promise Ring, who the singer of Jimmy Eat World was influenced by and was also a friend. Is Daniel in that sort of role for you as well?
Well, yeah, for sure. I mean, he's someone that I've known for a long time, since I was probably since I was about 17 years old. So around like 2005, I guess, is probably when I met Daniel. And he's an incredibly talented dude and a great friend. And we've, been able to work on lots of music together. And so yeah, it is kind of a similar thing.
And having this EP out there, does that give you a hunger to do a full-length solo album?
Yeah, I mean, well, in fact, I've actually already recorded a handful of songs, like original material, and I plan on going back in to finish up. I'd probably start with doing another EP, and then kind of see whatever happens from there. But yeah, I do like the idea of doing another EP, and then I also I'm already itching to get back in and record some more covers as well, and just see kind of what happens. I guess maybe one day tackling something as big as like a full length would be cool. It's just it's tough with this because obviously Mayday Parade is pretty busy and is still my first priority, and so I kind of in any of the stuff for this solo project I kind of just work on whenever I have time in between Mayday stuff. And so just we'll have to kind of see just what that schedule allows in the future. But yeah, it's definitely doing these shows has got me really just, pumped on this whole project. And it's just something different than I've ever done before. And it's nice after 14 years of being in Mayday Parade to do something that's, maybe a little bit challenging and kind of out of my comfort zone. And it's been a lot of fun being out here.
And it sounds like a lot to juggle between Mayday Parade and the solo stuff that you're doing. Do you have any creative outlets outside of music?
Honestly, not really so much. There's, small little things that I get into, small little projects. Something that a couple of years back, Cabbage or Jeremy, the bass player of Mayday Parade, we all call him Cabbage, but we shot a short movie on tour. It's kind of like a silly, like cheesy action movie that we shot a couple years ago that we still haven't finished, like putting it all together. But so I guess if that kind of counts as, like a creative project, then that's something that's where we, still work on. But other than that, I mean, not really. I play a lot of video games. That's kind of what my other, big, I guess, passion and other than music is, I spend a good bit of time playing video games, but that, doesn't really count, I guess, as, working on something creatively. But yeah.
It's kind of a cliche to ask who are your influences to a musician, but what was the first band that really made you want to pick up an instrument in the first place?
Yeah, I guess I would probably say Smashing Pumpkins would be the first band that, because when I was a kid, I'd listen to the music that my parents would play, and but my oldest brother, who's 4 years older than me, I remember very well the day that, I was probably 7 years old, or 7 or 8 years old, or somewhere around there, that he sat me down and showed me the song Today off of Siamese Dream by Smashing Pumpkins. And that was definitely like a life-changing kind of, event. Like, and I was like, you got to show me more. Like, you got to, like, and I just, it was, he showed me all these bands, it was a lot of, like, 90s alternative rock kind of stuff, and got really into all of, Nirvana, Smashing Pumpkins, and Bush, and Oasis, and, all that stuff. But certainly that moment of sitting down listening to Today was like the, opening of the door for all that. And not too long after that is when I got my first acoustic guitar and started kind of learning how to play some of those songs and started messing around with writing songs and all that.
So you definitely started out with great influences, but did you ever have a ska phase?
I never did have a ska phase. I always thought that ska was really fun. And there's a bunch of like ska bands that we would play with in early, shows, and, before I was in Mayday Parade and I was in other local bands, and we'd play with a bunch of ska bands that I thought were really cool and really fun. But I never really listened to a whole lot of ska, I guess, outside of that, honestly. But I do appreciate it, and I think it's like just, super fun music.
And no hair metal either?
Not really. I was a really big fan of Metallica when I was in middle school, and there was a period of time where, like, I tried to learn how to play like every single Metallica song. But that's probably there weren't a lot of other bands like that I got really into.
So it sounds really like you started with the good influences and you never got off track. Before you said that, you are slowly recording stuff for maybe an eventual solo album, and you're doing covers and all that. But what does the rest of 2020 look like for you? Are you keeping very busy with Mayday Parade?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're actually going into the studio in about a week and a half, and going into we've been kind of bouncing around. Late last year we went into the studio and recorded a couple songs, and we're going in to record 5 more, and we don't even really know yet, honestly, what, like, if if this is album number 7, or if we might split it up into an EP or 2, or what it's gonna look like. But we're kind of just approaching it as like just taking the best songs that we have right now and recording them, and just kind of seeing where it goes. And and in fact, I imagine once we get together here pretty soon, we'll have we need to have some conversations about, what our plan is with all that. But so we'll be in the studio, and then we have this tour in April that we're doing with Grayscale and Point North. And then we're doing a handful of international stuff. Some of it's announced and some of it hasn't been announced yet, but some festivals in the UK and in Europe. And I imagine we'll do, we typically will do a fall headline US tour, and we'll probably do that again. And so, stay pretty busy with all that. And then, and if it works out, I'll plan on trying to work on some more solo stuff kind of in those gaps, and maybe even do a couple more short little runs like this where I just kind of hop around and play a few solo shows and just see whatever makes sense, really.
Sounds like there's never a dull moment for you. So keep being respectful of your time here. Any last words for the kids?
Thank you for the support, and thank you for the opportunity. This is, playing music is something that I've wanted to do since I was very young, and it's always been just a huge part of my life. And it's kind of amazing that we've been in Mayday Parade for over 14 years now. And, most bands don't get the opportunity to make it that long and to still tour at the level that we do. And so we certainly, we appreciate the chance to be able to do it and to still be around. And so it means a lot. And to be able to start a new project, after all this time, and the response has been really awesome so far. And I'm very grateful.
Well, thank you so much for your time. Hope to do another interview in the future where I find out about the video games, but looking forward to your solo work, and really thanks for your time, Derek.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Paltrocast.
Next up is my interview with Vickie Guerrero. Yes, that Vickie Guerrero, the one that was on WWE television for more than a decade, regularly yelling, "Excuse me," and interfering in matches and all sorts of things like that. But I had the pleasure of meeting Vickie on the Chris Jericho Cruise. That's short for the Chris Jericho Rock and Wrestling Rager that was back in January of this year. After one of her performances, I spoke with Vickie and said, "Hey, can I interview you?" And she said, "Okay, here's my email address and business card." Wrote her, and sure enough, you hear back, and she's eager to get on the phone, and I could not have had a more pleasant experience. It really is one of those things where the heels or the villains in wrestling turn out to be the greatest people. Now, Vickie these days is podcasting. Her podcast is called Excuse Me. What else would it be called, of course? She talks to wrestlers and all sorts of entertainers on there, getting a behind-the-scenes look at their journey, to say it politely. But she's also found success in fine arts kind of work. She also just wrapped an acting project, and that's another direction she's looking to go in the near future. Because, let's face it, wrestling is largely acting. So we're talking about somebody who acted on a weekly television show for well over a decade. Think you're going to enjoy this one as well. We're here to talk about what you've been up to the past couple of years, which is a lot. And the first big thing is Excuse Me, the Vickie Guerrero Show, which a lot of people already love. You're getting a lot of great names, which seem to be a lot of friends from your past and present. Who or what was it that inspired you to launch a podcast?
Well, I never thought about, having a podcast because my forte was being interviewed all the time. So that was the easy part. But when my co-host, Gerald Strauss, he had interviewed me before, and I knew him through the years. And he said, would you ever be interested in doing a podcast? And I thought, well, I'm not tech savvy to do like all the connections and, the editing and stuff. And he says, I'll take care of that. I just need your name. So he pretty much put it really simple that, if I get your name, then we can do this together. And we hit it off, and we make a great team, and everything has just been really a lot of fun. I love researching the people. I love having, them come on the show, and just, it's my chance to highlight someone else. And it's been a lot of fun because there's some really great talent from all kinds of genres that I'm loving to put them on the spotlight and, showcase what they've been up to.
And on the first episode, you kind of talk about your mission statement is to be directly in touch with the fans and at the same time your friends and all that. Who was the first guest that you booked, or at least you thought, hey, this is the person that should be on the first episode?
I think it was more about availability. Because as you try and get guests and content, and it all depends on everyone's schedule. But I mean, my first one was Edge, and Michelle McCool. So I think I did them in the first week, and I just love these guys dearly. And so we had a lot to talk about with us working together. And then we also have a friendship outside, the business. So it was just a perfect fit, and everything ran really smooth. And I love to talk, so it wasn't hard for me to get a conversation with these guys.
And the first episode also refers to the fact that people call you the Queen of Mean, but you really do have this heart of gold. When was it that you realized that you could show your true personality and be yourself whenever you wanted?
Gosh, that's a good question. I guess I went through a lot of stages of trying to find my own identity. Before Eddie had passed, I was his wife, I was the mom of the girls, and I kind of had to kind of stay behind, and my focus was to get Eddie, he was a star, and it was my job to kind of keep everything together. It took me a while after Eddie passed, and I went on to WWE to be one of the superstars. It took about a good, 5 months to believe in myself, that I could do this. And, they call me the Queen of Mean, but, when they pay you to be, a mean person, it's very easy to find that inner bitch. And, but, at the same time, it was really important for me to play this villain character. But when I see people outside, in public and outside the ring and in hotels, I'm very real, and I don't play the villain at all unless I have to. But I just want to show people that, there's a character and then there's the real me. And I try and be down to earth, and just, I love talking to people and meeting people from different, parts of the world. So I'm kind of infatuated with everyone else because, when they want to come and talk to me, I forget why. And so I get very humbled because they want to, come and get to know me a little bit more. So I try and open that, with every conversation I have.
And I had the pleasure of seeing you on the Jericho Cruise, and you were definitely a hit among the 2,200 or so cruisers that were on there. And when somebody starts to do live podcasts, it's a sign that they're not only doing well as a podcaster, but people also start to clamor for other kinds of entertainment, live one-person shows, a book and all that. Are you looking towards that as a podcaster, or is it really just you want to do the podcast and that's what the focus is?
Yeah, the reason I love the podcast is because I can do this forever, as long as, by the grace of God that I'm able to do this and interview people and, find content. I am willing to be here for the long run. But I do have other projects. I do have other things that my eyes are set on, but the podcast is such a great fit because I can do this on my off time, and it's not something that I need to, stop my other projects from doing. So it works out really well with the schedule I have now.
And speaking of those other projects, I remember reading a couple of years ago that you were doing a scrapbook for the Bella twins. And I think a lot of people read that and they went, wait, Vickie does scrapbooking. So can you tell me more about your artistic background and your crafts projects?
Yeah, I've done crafts since the girls were babies. I picked up scrapbooking. I even have my own store in Tampa. And I love scrapbooking because, of course, you can take pictures of when the kids are young and journal and, keep those memories in these books that I create. And when the Bella's mom, Kathy Laurinaitis, had came up and said, hey, I want you to do some for the girls, I was humbled and, excited. And we also had done an art show for one of the WrestleManias, and they were asking the talent to do different art projects. So I thought, well, gosh, I'll do, a scrapbook frame of different superstars. And it was just a lot of fun. And I've always done it on my off time. And I've always been a crafter. I love to paint wine bottles and work with cactuses and, putting the cactus in the wine bottles. And if I'm not painting, I'm scrapbooking. So I always have, and I'm always living at Hobby Lobby. If you go on my Instagram, I'm always bragging about how I would do anything for a Hobby Lobby spree, shopping spree. So it's kind of the joke in my life.
Interesting. So if somebody were to hire you for a scrapbook, what is it besides cash, of course, that they have to provide for you to get started? Do they have to just send you some artifacts or give you a theme?
I'm very particular. It takes a lot of work before I even start the project because I need to hear the story of what the book is going to be about, whether it's a baby book or a graduation or a wedding. I like to consult with them and get their ideas and look at the pictures. And also the client has to be very detailed in what each picture is saying, because I have to, put that story on a page. And so I look for a lot of facts, names, what was going on, what the situation is. And then I have different color schemes that people pick from, and I carry that through the book. So it's a lot of artistic, touches. And of course, the price depends on how much, they want to embellish the book with, different papers and, decorations you can put on the page. And then also the price is about the time that it takes. And I think one scrapbook can probably average about probably $500 to $600. It depends on how many pictures there are and what they want to do for that book.
I'm sure a lot of people listening to this will be reaching out to you in the near future. You can just submit an inquiry through your website, I take it, for scrapbooks?
Yeah, or my email at vickie.guerrero@outlook.com. I try and keep my clientele, I'll Skype with them, or I love when they're in Houston where I live, because I can actually meet with them and look at their stories that they have. And I'm really particular and picky about, the person's, pictures, because that's their memories, that's their family, their loved ones. And so I make sure that we understand each other, what they want to say in that book, and I carry it through to the end of the project.
Well, going back to your podcast, you said that you found something that you can do for the rest of your life, which is, of course, wonderful to have a creative outlet like that. Do you have plans, if all went amazing, to do it more than once or twice a week, or is that just the right amount for you?
No, I love to be busy. Actually, I'm probably bored right now. I did the Chris Jericho Cruise, and I do Comic Cons and different conventions. My heart goes to acting. I just finished a short film here in Houston that we filmed over the weekend. And, so I have an acting agent who's looking out for projects for me to star. And that's my big goal for 2020, is to be in a movie or a TV series. So I do acting classes during the week and do my podcast, and then also do interviews like for yourself. So I'm always trying to, keep busy, promote, and publish my own content. And then also working on my book. That's been taking a lot of my time. So when I'm down, downtime and I have nothing to do, I have my computer and I'm always writing on my book that's going to be published this year.
Wow, I didn't realize you had a book in the works. Any hint you can give us as to somebody writing a foreword or an introduction for it?
I do have someone who's good. I think Tamina Snuka is going to be one of the ones that will write the foreword. That's something that's always been dear to my heart. She went through a lot of my road travels with me, and we share a lot of the common interests. And so it's hard to say, if I could, I'd have 10 people write it for me, but we'll see when that time comes and what the editor wants. But yeah, she's someone that's made a big impact when I was at WWE. And
you've been very open, which is wonderful with me so far. But is there anything that you wish more people knew about you in general?
Wow, Darren, let's see. I think I'm pretty much an open book. I think I'm a little bit of OCD. I love to be on time. I hate being late to things. I'm very, I'm very organized. I'm a planner. So if you looked at my desk, I have a bunch of things to-do lists, and I check them off as I finish them. So I guess I've kind of, gained that behavior from WWE, because I had to plan everything precisely with my girls and being on the road. But yeah, that's something that I am, is very organized.
Great. So in closing, Vickie, any last words for the kids?
Gosh, you know what? The kids are just really dear to my heart. I try and be the person that they meet on the streets. I'm very humbled. I always tell everyone to always have your faith, and whatever it is, to have a higher power that's going to give you that motivation and the strength to get through whatever you're going through in your day. And just to, whatever you're going to do, make sure that you're loving it, so it doesn't feel like work. It's going to feel like you're at a playground every day.
Paltrocast.
Last but definitely not least is my interview with Stoll Vaughan. This one happened in a very unique kind of way. I posted an interview online that I did with Devin Allman, son of Greg Allman from the Allman Brothers Band, and I got a reach out saying, hey, saw that piece you did on Devin. What would you think about speaking with a guy who co-wrote a lot of those songs on that album? So I did my research, and sure enough found out that Stoll not only did that, but was involved with Carl from My Morning Jacket and a lot of rock greats. So I jumped at the chance to speak with him by phone. found him to be an incredibly nice guy. We not only spoke about his upcoming solo album, which is out this month, we spoke about his journey from being, a kid who went to performing arts school to being an in-demand songwriter, producer, collaborator, and singer-songwriter in his own right. I gladly talk with Stoll any day of the week, and I think you're going to come away with that same impression after you listen to this one. I believe we were connected by Ben after he saw an article that I did on Devin Allman. How did you get into the picture of the Allmans and the Betts and all that?
Well, I kind of started writing with Dwayne and produced his sketches of American music. And then Devin wanted to take Dwayne out as an opener. And so they went out and we should try to write together. And since I'm kind of the writing guy for Dwayne was like, well, I'd love to have my buddy Stoll come out. And so I just flew out to Oklahoma City and we just started writing. And it really worked. I mean, from kind of the first writing session, I just jumped on the bus and started writing. And then we got the first record on about different trips. And then, this new record that's coming, we focused, this past year on that.
And it's very interesting to me when I look at your credits, how many legends and Rock and Roll Hall of Famers you've worked with or toured with or anything like that. How did this become your career path where all these high-level people were your friends pretty young?
Well, I got a good start. I went down to Bloomington, Indiana in 98 after I graduated from high school. And I just, I got involved with kind of the Mellencamp world. This guy, Mike Wanchek, who's been with Mellencamp for 45 years. And he had a studio called Echo Park at the time. And one thing about Mellencamp and all that is that they had been involved with great songwriters, whether it's James McMurtry or John Prine or Dylan or, that camp had been on that high level. And I didn't understand it then, but, I didn't understand like how you do music. I just figured you just play guitar, go into a studio. And so I asked Mike, I said, I want to just make a record. And he said, do you have any songs? I said, no. And he kind of, from that point forward, took me under his wing and said, you got to write songs. And so that's been my focus. So I kind of had the mentorship of those guys. And then from there, they kind of slingshotted me into being able to do a lot of the cool things that I've done.
And when I look at your history, I've read that you also attended Interlochen, which is kind of like Junior Berkeley. Josh Groban went there. Singer-songwriter Tracy Bonham went there. Sam Hyken from New Deco went there. When you went to Interlochen, did you go with any other people that readers or listeners to this might know as household names these days?
Household names, maybe not so much. I mean, a lot of them, a lot of people are playing with good orchestras. And, my best friend, my roommate is Austin Lynch, which is David Lynch's son. And he's done really well. But yeah, Interlochen, it's funny though, because I didn't understand conservatories or that sort of thing. And, it's a freak show up there. I mean, you have like 14-year-old kids that are going to Juilliard the next year, because they're so, they're just geniuses at what they do, whether it's marimbas or violin or French horn. I mean, it's like, what? So it was a great experience for me. If I really wanted to take that route, when I was there, I had an option of taking the route of the conservatory, which I would have had to stay at Interlochen for a post-grad year. And then you go to, Indiana University or Juilliard, or I don't think I would have gotten into Juilliard, or Berkeley. But I made the decision that through the creative writing teacher, head of the department up there, he said, Stoll, you need to, go out and have life experiences if you don't want to be a classical musician. I said, you're right, man, I'm out. So I didn't understand how great it was until I've been able to go back and teach and stuff like that. And, it's incredible.
I do know that Damien and Tim from the band OK Go met at Interlochen. Any chance you were there at the same time as them?
I don't know. They might have met during the summer camp, it sounds like. I would have known those guys because it's a pretty tight-knit community. I mean, I spent 1 year there. Most people do 2 years for the high school. Some do 4. And then they've got the summer camp that has a lot more people that go to it. But maybe, I mean, I would know those guys though. No, I wasn't there with them.
Well, bringing it back to you, you do a lot of different things and have done a lot of different things. To some people, you're a singer-songwriter. To other people, you're a composer. To other people, you've done A&R. But how do you like to be thought of in general?
I think a songwriter. I mean, I think that's what I am. There was a time there when I was doing a lot of production and I had an artist development company, which I had some partners. And so I was a little bit confused then. If somebody asked me what I was doing, I'd be like, well, I produce things, I write songs for them. But the bottom line is I'm a songwriter. And when I'm working with artists, since I am a performing artist, I can understand where they are. So I'm not just writing songs in a vacuum and then saying, hey, you got to do this song. I'm writing songs directly with artists. And so all I'm trying to do is, like, say with Devin and Dwayne, is just get their story. I don't really care if it's the perfect, the perfect song. If it's their story, it will be the perfect song for them. And all the little tweaks of whether the bridge is long enough or short enough or right or this or that, those things, that's the craft of songwriting. And that's the easy process. The hard process is being in the spirit of the person or yourself and kind of, being able to dive into that and find something that is honest. And so I think in the bottom line is I'm just a songwriter,
And I understand that you have Desire Shape coming out in a few months. Is that still the case?
Yeah, that's still the case. It's an acoustic kind of driven record. I'm excited about it.
And did you produce this one yourself, or did you work with people like Mike and Carl on this one?
No, I did this one myself. So the first one, the Conversation, I hadn't put out a record for a long time. And so with that, I have all the gear, because of that studio that I did have. And so I set out to do it on my own. And the thing that I discovered, and it's really hard to do a record on your own, because if you don't edit on a consistent basis and really kind of able to step back emotionally and see where you are, you'll get too far where you'll bury some of the mistakes so deep that you can't, you really can't go back and fix them. And so when I went into the Conversation, which is the record out now, when I first started, I went into it in my own studio, and that's what I was going to do. And I got to a point where I was sitting around with my buddy Austin and a couple other people were listening to it, and there's just several things that were too deep in the process to remove. And so that's why I reached out to Carl and Mike, because I needed fresh ears. I was too connected, and so this time I wanted to see if I could discipline myself. And from the experience of the first one, I feel like I did a better job, because you can get really tired. If you're doing your own music, you can make choices that are really bad because you don't know, you lose your own identity. And so you think, oh, this will make it cooler. And that thought isn't part of the foundation. It's just a fleeting thought. And then you make those choices, and then you just kind of get stuck. So I'm grateful that I was able to be disciplined,
It sounds like a Daniel Lanois kind of situation where he's worked on these legendary albums, but that music has almost nothing to do with his singer-songwriter career.
Yeah, I love what I love that El Teatro record. I love a lot of Daniel Lanois records. His, that's an interesting. I've never had that posed to me, so I guess I need to say just thank you for that one.
My pleasure. So besides the new record, are there any new or upcoming projects that you can talk about, or really is the focus on the new record and any work you've done recently with Allman Betts?
Yeah, I mean, the Allman Betts record is coming in June, so that's going to be a really good one. I mean, that's got 13 songs. I think I've written 12 of them with those guys, and so that's a big deal. And then my record, yeah, I mean, that's kind of the focal point for me. And so nothing else right this second. Hopefully I get some videos, that sort of thing, just the record cycle. And I'm really grateful that I'm able to, I wrote 4 records in the past, couple years, and I'm just grateful that I'm being consistent, and that's the hardest part of this thing, is not being discouraged or just, or not being lazy, and just continuing the process. And so I'm really excited about being able to do another record, put it out. And so now I'm thinking about new songs,
Well, delving into that creative process a little bit, you could ask 1,000 people and get 1,000 different answers. When it comes to songwriter, then some people treat it like a day job where they write from 9 to 5. Other people kind of need a deadline. Other people can't really write unless they're in the room with other people. Now, given that some of your stuff is your own, some of it's for other artists, are you the kind of person that's writing every day or every week even?
No, no, I'm not. I think, there's a feeling that there's like an energy that comes when it's time to kind of like really write and kind of put down some experiences. And I understand the thought of like writing every day, just getting ideas, putting them down and flushing it out. But to some degree that's sterile to me because life needs to be lived. And that it kind of comes back to that Interlochen, that teacher for creative writing, here and experience life, if you really want to delve into the arts. And I'm a firm believer of that, that the experience of life is what, although sometimes it's just subconscious, it kind of gets in there, and then you can dive in and extract it in a certain time, and then that time has a certain feel, and then you continue to shift. Your ability to shift, maybe you'll get stuck in kind of a certain sound, I don't know. I might be reaching a little bit as well, but I think, but for me, I thought a lot about it. I think that, it's a meditation more than it is. It's a craft, but the craft is like after you get the inspiration.
Well, 2 quick questions and then you're a free man. And the first question is, it sounds like you're writing all the time, you're around other artists all the time, but when you're not doing music-related stuff, what do you like to do with yourself? Any surprising hobbies?
Well, I love to fly fish. That's a big thing for me. That's kind of that's my hobby that I do when I'm out on the road. I love playing in Colorado and Wyoming and Montana, and because then I get a chance to fly fish, and that inspires me and kind of keeps me focused and happy.
Cool. So in closing, any last words for the kids?
No, but thank you so much. You're great.
Paltrocast.
Thanks for listening to the Paltrocast with Darren Paltrowitz, as produced by puregrainaudio.com. Theme song by Steve Schiltz. Audio mix by Mark Piro. Until next time, have a great Shabbos.